Ross Amer joins us now from San Clemente in California. He's the CEO of Aero Consulting Experts. Thank you very much for taking the time to talk to us. We just had a very brief history of that type of plane, but can you give us a bit more detail about this model of plane and its safety record?
Good morning. The Tupolev Tu-154 was designed in the mid-60s. As you mentioned, it's a three-engine airliner, and it's quite old. Unfortunately, has not a very good track record. There've been many crashes previously on this type of aircraft. And ironically, the one that you mentioned about 6 years ago, the Polish Tu-154, the same type of aircraft, crashed. And my understanding is that the Russians refused to return that aircraft to Poland. Kind of an ironic situation. But obviously, we don't know exactly what happened to this, and I hate to speculate. But I noticed when you mentioned it departed Sochi at 5:20 in the morning. From what I understand, this aircraft was coming from Moscow earlier, so it would have flown all night, basically, on the backside of the clock, and landed in Sochi perhaps at 4 a.m., refueled, and it was on the way to Syria. So perhaps one of the things that the investigators will look into is the fatigue issue. The crew would have flown all night and now took off, and possibly they may have had some issues with the aircraft, but I would think that possibly fatigue would make play a major role when the investigators look into this.
Ross, can I ask, I mean, Aeroflot retired the fleet back in 2009, as we mentioned there, from commercial use. It's been in service for 40-odd years. Why was such a plane still in use?
Well, you know, the airplanes, such as Tu-144, they've been in service such a long time. If they're maintained properly, there's really nothing wrong with using them. But this is an old technology, and when Aeroflot retired this airplane, the Russian military were still using it as a military transport, and I guess that's the best they could do. And they've been using this particular aircraft carrying troops back and forth to Syria. They usually are flown by or they're guarded by some Russian fighter jets when they cross over to Syria. So, you know, I don't know why Russia would use this old technology aircraft still in the military use, but perhaps they didn't have a better aircraft for transportation.
And you've touched on the possibility of fatigue being one factor here. If it was a technical fault, looking back at the record of the plane, what are some of the potential causes of this accident?
Well, you also mentioned this aircraft was re-engined not too long ago, although the rest of the aircraft is very old technology. And as we know, there's the safety record of the aircraft is very dismal in the past. When the Aeroflot basically disintegrated after the Soviet Union ceased to exist, a lot of these aircraft were transported to third world countries, and there's been crashes in those countries. A few of them crashed, for example, in Iran. They were using these airplanes as charter planes, as secondary markets, low-cost carriers, etc. And one of the reasons that the aircraft has a bad track record is perhaps not getting enough attention maintenance-wise.
Okay, Ross Amer, thank you very much for talking to us.